All right, drum tuning, snare drum tuning part 2. Snare drum tuning, cleaning, maintenance part 2, I guess. Um, cool. So if you've noticed, I'm pretty happy with where it's at. Go ahead and listen really quick. You're going to hear the non-snare bed tension rods are going to be higher in pitch relative to the outside snare bed tension rods because the hoop or the edge dips down a little bit right there. The tension will be naturally lower anyways. So go ahead and listen for it. It's completely natural. So I don't know how well you can hear over the computer, but these ones are slightly lower. And once again, it's not like totally perfect. So let me go through and just do one last correction just to kind of do the finishing touches. So this one's a little low relative to these two. There we go. So these two are good. This one's a little low. Oop, I might have been wrong. This one's a little low. Okay, let's see where we're at. This one's still a little low. Cool, so I allow these to all kind of be at the same pitch. And then as far as the outside ones, they're about a half step down. If you go on a piano and press one key and then press the next key that's lower, that's what a half step is. What's going on here? Oh. Sorry, my computer did something weird. Make sure we're good. Hang on. Okay, we're good. Cool. Okay. Moving on. Okay, so yeah. I'm pretty happy with where that's at. I like the tension. I know I'm going to get a good snare response from this. I think we're good to go. It's not perfect, but I believe, as somebody who's been, obsessed with tuning for a very long time, I believe we're good to go. I'm forgetting one crucial step here. Snare wires. So gotta throw these on there. So what you're gonna want to do is grab your snare strainer here, loosen it up, loosen it down pretty good. I'd say like 75% down. You don't want to go all the way or this whole mechanism right here is gonna fall apart. So scoot this back so you can see that. There we go. So what I'm going to do is actually, I always do the non-snare activator side, so what we call the butt plate right here. I always do that first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my snare wires, or my ribbon that's holding onto my snare wires here, and I'm going to go ahead and run those. I'm going to go and run those through the butt plate. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get it through there. Pull it through, make sure everything's nice and even. And then tighten it down. It's grabbing on to that ribbon. You want to make sure I've got it right just off the edge there, because it's going to get pulled a little bit, and I want to try to get these snare wires perfectly in between both sides of the hoop if I can. So make sure that's nice and tight. Make sure it's nice and even and straight. The last thing you want is, all your good tuning to go to waste because your snare wires are kind of uneven and not responding properly. Yeah, make sure that's nice and even. Double check the tightness. Seems like we're good to go. Now let's talk about the other side. So come over here. I'm going to loosen the screws on this one as well. It's being kind of stubborn. How we doing on time? Time check. Cool. Loosen these bad boys up. So this is basically the same kind of mechanism as the butt plate, at least where it grabs the ribbon. You're just going to thread that through just like you did before. And this is kind of the tricky part. Because what you want to do is you want to make sure that this has enough of the ribbon so that you can actually tighten. You can actually get the snares to actually touch the head, but not be too tight as well. That you could go when it's released and all the way at its lowest, or you could put them through when it's engaged. And what I do is I kind of go in the middle, so kind of right in the middle, and then I will tighten it down. Making sure to keep the ribbon as straight as possible to get my snares to lay straight. I'm very careful with this part because the snare wires make the snare drum sound. That is like a huge part of the sound is the bottom head and the snare wires. That's why they call it the snare drum, because it's got these snare wires. Make sure it's nice and tight, not too tight. You don't want to strip it. That would suck. Don't want to strip the screw. Okay, so it looks like we're pretty even right there. It's pretty straight. I'm feeling pretty good about that, actually. Double checked, and it looks a little crooked, so I'm going to fix that. This is all part of it. Very tedious, setting up your instrument and making sure it sounds good. Get it right in the middle if you can. Make sure this is staying kind of right in the middle. Hold it in place. There we go. All right, there we are. Okay, nice. Let me double check one more time. Yeah, a little bit more. There we go. Cool. So I've got those nice and tight. They're grabbing on nice and secure. Just for safety, I always double check one more time, just because you don't want your snare wires sliding loose while you're playing or anything like that. So cool. We're all good to go there. Dope. All right. Okay. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and gauge that, kind of see where it's at. So it's pulling a little tight right now. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to loosen it. Let's see. Okay. So I think it might just be, I might have pulled it through a little too tight. And that happens sometimes. So I think I'm going to loosen this. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a little more slack. Oops. Okay. My little screw just broke. Okay. Well, that's not good. All right, I'm going to do my best here. Try to tighten this down with one screw. See how that goes. Okay. Let me go a little bit looser. Oh, man. Let me see if... oh, man. Okay. Pull this through a little more. Let the snares have a little more slack. Okay. Yeah, it seems as though I've actually kind of messed this up here. I don't think this is actually going to work. Oh, man. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. Okay. Well, I need to fix that. Let me grab another one of my snare drums, and I'll kind of show you the rest of this on there. That's unfortunate. Cool. Different drum, same concept. So what I was just doing is getting this mechanism all set up. And like I said, you want to make sure you've got it set up so that you can get the snare wires not too tight, not too loose as far as this whole thing right here goes. Double checking. I'm good back here. Do a quick time check. Okay, we're good. Sweet. All right, sorry about that. Moving on. Double checking this. Let me loosen it up and re-show you the process on that. Just gonna make sure I get everything. we get it. So once again, it's nice and loose. Thread it through. Cool. Like I said, you want to loosen this up a bit just to make sure that you have enough, slack to be able to access multiple tensions. Kind of somewhere in the middle there. Let me go a little bit more because it ended up being too tight last time. And then I'm going to tighten it down, make sure it's nice and even once again. Make sure these are nice and tight. Good to go there. All right, cool. Now, let's talk about kind of what we're looking for in regards to the tension of the snare wires. Super important, actually. So I'm going to loosen this all the way. Okay. So now that's loose. I've got the snare mechanism. I've got it engaged, and the wires are not touching the head at all. That's perfectly fine because this is very loose and we have plenty of room to tighten it. That's what we're looking for. Okay. So next thing is, after I did that, before I show you the snare wire stuff, you would throw the top head back on, do the exact same process. I do about 2 or 3 turns, possibly 4, on this top head in regards to putting it back on. And then same thing, just on this head, you can actually pitch check everything. So you can pitch check. You can pitch check all of the tension rods evenly because there's no weird snare bed thing going on. Those are relatively even, pretty close actually for a drum that's been sitting around for a while. So I'm going to say that's good to go. And then as far as this snare wire tension goes, check it out. Okay. As far as the snare wire tension goes, what I'll do is I'll actually put the drum down with the snare wires completely loose. I'll engage the snare wires, even though they're really loose and they're not touching the head. And what I'll do is I'll actually, while it's in that position, let me show you. I will grab the knob and I'll actually tighten it while playing it. And this is how I can easily and quickly dial in the snare response I'm looking for. Check it out. You'll hear it. There we go. So now they're starting to make contact with the head. It's getting relatively less loose as the wires are being pulled towards the bottom head. And you don't want to go too tight, because if you go too tight, check it out. It can actually, they can be too tight, and then they don't have room to rattle or breathe. They start choking down on the bottom head, and you get this very choked, kind of very, just not, in my opinion, unpleasant sound. It's a little too short, a little too choked. You gotta let the drum breathe. So that's what too tight sounds like. Let's hear too loose one more time. And then I'm gonna bring it back up to my desired tension while playing it. So I can hear the change as it's happening. So obviously no snares. That's kind of what too loose sounds like. Where they're kind of like really rattling around and not even really doing much. Like you can feel too. I'll show you. They are not very tight whatsoever. So now, moving forward, now I'm going to show you that whole tightening while playing thing again. Check it out. Pretty loose. I'm going to slowly tighten. Still rattling around a little bit after. Listen. Rattle. Keep going. little bit. I'd say that would sound good in some settings. For me personally, I'm gonna go a little tighter. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for right there. The drum is still breathing, it's still resonating. You hear it. But I'm still getting that snare bite and that snare response, and it's not choking down on the bottom head, and it's not too loose. So we're looking for right in the middle, not too tight, not too loose. There's a little sweet spot that you're kind of looking for in regards to the snare wires. At least in my opinion, I have a personal sweet spot that I like, and I notice most people agree with me in that regard. So kind of once you've got the bottom dialed in, and then you've got this top head sounding good, that's kind of, you know, that's kind of the whole process. And really quick, because I wasn't able to show you putting the top head back on because something on my drum broke while I was tuning it. Typically on a snare drum, I'll have the top head either significantly lower, slightly medium lower, but always lower than the bottom head. I always like to have that bottom head nice and tight, catching that snare response, setting the foundation. And that's kind of a good segue into this next part of the tutorial, which is going to be rather quick, I'd say, but very informative. And I think this kind of lends to the helpfulness of my method of snare drum tuning. Okay, so this bottom head is about as tight as I had the other one, which is good. And the reason this kind of tuning is so useful, really tight, firm bottom head, good snare response, is because to change your snare sound, now all you have to do is change the tuning of this top head. And that's kind of what I'm going to show you really quick from the ground up. So let me actually loosen this top head. And this greatly depends on the style of music that you're playing. Like a lot of like indie and pop music will use like a lower tune snare drum. Some rock will use like a medium tune snare drum. Reggae uses like a really high tune snare drum. Like gospel music and R&B uses really high tune snare drum. Death metal. I don't know if anyone's listened to a lot of death metal, but higher tune snare drums. And then I can tell this head was already decently low. So I'm already pretty loose, so I'm gonna go ahead and just go around, do the final nail in the coffin, loosen everything up. So now I'm as low as can possibly be here. Let's hear what that sounds like. Not very good. It doesn't sound like anything. It sounds like nothing. So, but you can still hear the bottom head and the snares doing their work, which is a good thing. That means you have a solid foundation to work on here. So now I'm going to go through, and I'm going to show you kind of how I get my low, fat, like big, gushy snare tunings. You're going to hear this if you listen to a band like Now Now. You listen to, you know, anything that those hipster dudes with fedoras listen to. Anything in kind of the indie pop alternative space. A lot of that's going to use this kind of low snare tuning. Yeah, if you listen to Now Now, if you listen to No Vacation, and then kind of a lot of 80s music uses this like low snare tuning. So, just some examples. Yeah, definitely No Vacation. Now Now. Yeah, I'm going till it grabs, and then I'm making my turn. Going until it grabs, making my turn. Going until it grabs, making my turn. I think I already did that one. Hang on. No, I didn't do this one. 10 lugs, it can get confusing. Just double check really quick. Oh, that's the one I missed. Okay. There we go. Yep. Okay, so now I'm going to double check. Since we're so loose here, I'm going to make sure everything is... Okay, I missed this one too. Weird. There we go. I think that's all of them now. Yeah. Okay, I missed a couple. That was my bad. That's going to happen. I don't retune too often, so I'm kind of out of my funk in regards to the star pattern. Yeah, so I've got this pretty low. It's pretty low. Da, 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 da. So this tuning, just by itself, in my opinion, doesn't sound too good. It's got this weird kind of mid-range thud to it that I'm not a huge fan of. Whenever I'm going for these low tunings, I always apply some form of muting in regards to adding stuff to the drum. So the first thing you can do, if you have any old drum heads laying around, is you can take a razor blade or something, and you can actually cut out drum heads from the, you can cut off the metal, the little metal aluminum hoop that's on the outside of the drum head. So, you know, just like this, I could take this off and cut it out. And what I've done is I've cut one of those out from a coated drum head, and you can actually throw that onto your drum, and it kind of supplies this nice muted kind of softening tone. Adjust the snares real quick. Yeah, there we go. So you hear that, and by itself it doesn't sound very good, but with the right kit, with the right low-tuned drum set, and in the right genre of music, that actually works extremely well. See the examples that I gave you earlier. And I'd say, even for a low tuning, this is probably too low. So I'm going to go a little bit higher, see what that sounds like. And if you're making these little tiny adjustments, it's usually okay to just kind of go around. The only time you want to do the star pattern, you really need to, is when you're doing kind of those big, rambunctious adjustments like half or full turns. I don't even mess with full turns because I've had thin bottom heads explode on me before. So, okay, we went up a little bit. I think that might work a little better. Yeah, so by itself, it's kind of got this weird overtone to it, but throw the head on there. Yeah, it's got this nice thud, lo-fi hip-hop, indie pop sound to it. Cool, so that's kind of how you can get access to that tuning, and that's without messing with the bottom head at all. And I kind of fiddled with the snare wires a little bit, but all I did was throw an old cutout drum head on it. And I mean, that sounds fine. I don't like the ring, but you know, you could have that sound, or you could have this sound, or a couple other options here. Check it out. Grab some tape. I'm not a fan of this, but you can grab some tape, throw that on there. In my opinion, it kind of chokes it out, but I see it a lot, so I mean, try it out, see if you like it. You can also take some tape, grab a piece of tissue paper, kind of ball that up or make a little square, put that on the tape, and then stick that on the drum, and it's a little bit softer than just throwing tape on there. That's another option that I see people use. I've never used it, so I'm not going to recommend it to you. Let's see what else I got here. Oh, little bonus round here. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. So the cymbal company that I play, Dream Cymbals, they recycle some of their old cracked cymbals into these little snare drum add-on percussive things. And this is actually an old cymbal that was cut out into an O, an old kind of darker cymbal. And then they put these little tambourine rings into it. So it kind of sounds like a tambourine, but you can throw that on the snare drum as well, and it adds more dampening and an extra texture with the tambourine rings. You can also do that without the cut-off drum head. That sounds, I like that one the most in my opinion. Yeah, a lot of interesting sounds you can get just by piling stuff on top of your snare drum. Okay, let's talk about a couple different tuning options, and I think that's going to be it for us today. Everybody hanging in there? Thumbs up? Cool. Okay, so I'm at about kind of a low medium tuning. Let's see what like a medium tuning sounds like. I'm going to go up like an eighth to a quarter of a turn on this. In fact, I think I'm going to pitch check this and just raise it that way, just because I think it might be a little uneven from what I did earlier. Yeah, so I'm going to find all the low ones and just kind of bring those up. And I have a feeling collectively that's going to bring me up to a sort of medium tuning. A little low. at sort of a normal kind of medium snare drum tuning right here. And I noticed that the top head, the pitch that the top head is initially being hit and resonating at, that changes the relationship between it and the bottom head, because the pitches are, changed. The top head is changing pitch because I'm tuning it. And so the bottom head responds a little differently. And I noticed that makes the wires, respond a little differently. So I've kind of, every time I've gotten to a new tuning here, I've kind of had to mess around with the snare wires a little bit. That's a good thing that I don't see a lot of people saying. Is just talking about that relationship really quick. And also, to add on, if you put your hand on the top head, you can hear what pitch the bottom head is at without the top head ringing. Na na na. So actually, hang on. The top head actually right now is a little bit lower than the bottom head. I'd probably say for this drum, I'd probably crank it maybe a little higher on the bottom here. I didn't start out with this, so I wasn't able to check it beforehand. But yeah, I typically recommend always a little bit higher on the bottom. So maybe I'll do that really quick right now, because I didn't notice it until now. So let me just do one nice generous, oh yeah, it is kind of loose, wow. Let me do a generous half turn on this entire bottom head. Oh yeah. These are the kind of things that you have to check for when you're tuning drums. There we go. Hard to keep track of all these. Man. And I think, given how close it was to the top head, I think I'm going to go one more just for safety. Kind of stick consistent with my method here. Yeah, it was looser than I anticipated. That feels like more like where I normally have it at. So I'm going to roll forward with that, because that seems more consistent to the way I had the other one. Okay, so let's hear just what that did. So what you're going to hear here is you're going to hear a little bit higher of a pitch, because I tightened the drum head. And you're going to hear probably a little more ring, and possibly a different snare response. Nice. Sounds a lot better in my opinion, actually. Cool. So this is kind of a good, like, medium. Tighten those wires a little bit. There we go. Nice medium snare tune. You can hear the drum ringing out a decent amount too. That's because I don't have the snare wires too tight, and the drum is allowed to breathe. That's kind of the balance you want to find. You want to let the drum do its thing, but you also want to get what you want. That's kind of what you're going for. Let's see what our muting options sound like on this. That sounds really good for like a kind of a more coffee shop indie setting. Let's hear it with the tambourine ring on there. A little more dead. A little bit of chime from the tambourine. Also, I didn't mention, I have one more muting, kind of a couple more muting options. Just tambourine ring, so you can definitely hear it ringing out a little bit more there, or the tambourine aspect. Kind of took a little bit of the ring away, added some tambourine in there. This might be what you're looking for in your project or your recording. You never know. You want to have access to these things. There's also these little things called snare weights that you can buy. It's this little kind of felt pad that clips. It's got this little clip right here. Clips onto the edge of the drum. It's very subtle and light. So it just took away that ring mainly. The fundamental sound stayed the same. The ring went away. Listen again. It's all about experimenting. Okay, now listen to that ring. So stuff like this is much better than tape in my opinion because it preserves the fundamental sound and lets the head do its thing, lets the head breathe, it lets the drum breathe, but it takes away just that little ring that might not be desirable for a recording or a certain venue or a certain setting, or perhaps in drum lessons when you're just trying to get the point across and you don't want drums ringing a lot. Just a couple examples. Okay, let's explore just a couple more tunings and then we'll be done. So there's that kind of medium tuning. Maybe some would call that even medium high. I don't know. But let's crank this thing up and see what we can do. It's tight enough at this point where you're probably safe kind of just going around. There's not, really a lot of risk of unevenness at this point, so you can kind of just go around. Just be careful. It's getting pretty tight already. You can feel it. There we go. Okay, so now the drum is tuned very high. Bottom, top head is still a little lower than the bottom. Na na na. Okay, so I think I've got the top head. Looks like I've got the top head a little higher, actually. So let me go down, and if I'm going to go for these tighter tunings, I want to keep my relationship. So I want to keep my resonant head a little bit higher than my top head. And that might be something that you're going to have to adjust going through the process, and that's perfectly normal. This is the process in the making. This is how it happens. This one feels a little loose. Let me give a little extra love. That's what I'll do sometimes. That one feels a little loose too. Okay. Sometimes I'll tune by feel, actually. Sometimes I can feel when they're kind of loose, and so I'll make my own adjustment there. Okay, now it's a little bit higher than the top head, I think. Yeah, a little bit lower. Let's hear what that sounds like. So it's very like high, tight singing. So now that bottom head is a little bit tighter, so you might want to let the snare wires breathe a little more. Yeah, there we go. Sounds really good for like your pop, your R&B, potentially reggae. I don't think I'm going to try and take this drum any higher. It's a pretty big drum. It has a little bit lower of a fundamental pitch than some smaller drums. Yeah, that's typically the highest I would ever go. And let's really quick, just to finish up here, I'll talk about kind of what the modifications sound like and one extra bonus thing that I think is really interesting. This will be it for today. So if you want to take what you have and you want to turn it into a more dead, kind of dampened version, but different, maybe in a tasteful way, this cutout drum head is always the way to go, in my opinion. Before, after, different, maybe desirable, maybe not. Depends. Depends on the situation, the drummer, microphone, all that. Here's just the tambourine ring. A little bit extra texture. Didn't dampen it too much. The head's pretty tight. Let's try both. That sounds really good in my opinion. A lot of different sounds you can get with drums. Let's try the snare weight. Listen to that ring. Not much of it because the head's a little tighter. Just did that little extra at the end. Took it off. All right, here's the end. The bonus. I've seen this done with a lot of drummers I look up to. Is they'll take a old or new, this one's really old and cracked, splash cymbal, and they will actually throw that on the drum to kind of get the reason they do this is because it actually kind of emulates kind of the fake snare drums that you'll hear in like Post Malone or like Katy Perry or any kind of that new like SoundCloud style of music that you'll hear. Pretty much any generation of pop, newer pop, has those kind of fake sounding snares, and this is a really easy way to kind of emulate that sound. It's kind of got that like especially if you hit the the cymbal, kind of does that like. I've heard that on a couple of Kendrick Lamar albums. Stuff that sounds like that. And I mean, it kind of sounds like garbage, but I mean, that's kind of the point. All music is, contextual, and if the sound works in the context of a band and a recording, and even just within a drum set, like, it's okay. It's all about what you like and what you think sounds good. And yeah, so that's kind of a brief overview of, or a long, I guess, hour-long overview of how I think of and how I view snare drum tuning. If you want to know what I'm still working on, I'm still exploring kind of the relationship between the heads. I think personally that this drum doesn't do as well at these super high tunings. I'm definitely going to tune it down after this. But yeah, like I was saying, that relationship between the heads is something that I'm still exploring a lot. But I'm definitely really confident about the snare wire tension thing, keeping it not too tight, not too loose, finding that good pocket where it's not choking the drum but not too loose. The trying to maintain the star pattern as best as you can. I have trouble focusing, so I kind of lost track a couple times, but I did my best. And then going around and pitch checking, making sure that all of the tension rods are very similar pitches and similar tensions. By a result of that, keeps the hoop, the drum head, and the edge of the drum safe when you use that star pattern and pitch check correctly. Yeah, and I guess the last thing is just keep experimenting. I mean, I tried a couple new things while I was doing this, and that's just kind of a testament to, every time you go to tune or play, it's always it always ends up being an adventure, inevitably. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna leave y'all with today. We are out of time. And both of these recordings will be uploaded to the Strum YouTube page if you want to come back and revisit. So yeah, that's it. All right.